Flesh by David Szalay is the novel that won the Booker Prize in 2025. And it seems like this novel is a bit like Marmite. Some people love it, some people hate it. And I can very much see why, because it's quite different to anything I've read before. I think one of the main talking points of the novel is the way in which it's written. It's written in a very matter-of-fact style. It's very succinct and sparse, and a lot of times you need to read between the lines to try and find meaning, but there's also the feeling that is there meaning there, or am I just trying to create meaning where there isn't any meaning? And I must admit, for the first third of the novel, I didn't really gel with the writing style at all. I found it quite hard to connect with the characters, to connect with what was going on, because there wasn't a lot of showing going on. It felt very much like the writer was just telling us the story of this man's life, and I couldn't quite get into the story. However, something happened like a third of the way through where I just started to become a bit hypnotised by the book, and I felt very compelled to read it, and I found myself thinking about it all the time. Often when I finish a book, I will sit quietly and think about it for a while, but then life continues and I must get up and continue with my day. And the same happened with this book, but I found it lingered much more than other books I've read. I found myself thinking about it all afternoon because I finished it in the early afternoon, and then by the evening I found myself crying about it, which is a reaction that I've never had before when reading a novel. Even this morning when I woke up, because I finished the book yesterday, I found myself thinking about it. I haven't been able to move on from this book. I tried to pick up another book, but I just kept thinking about Flesh. And so in this video I'm going to try and dissect why this novel is quite polarising, and also how this novel managed to have such an impact on me. So first I want to talk a bit more in depth about the writing style. So as previously mentioned, this is written in a very succinct, sparse way. The novel is about Istvan's life, and we are told his life through a series of moments that vary in significance throughout his life. For example, in the beginning of the book, he's abused by an older neighbour of his. As his life progresses, he joins the army. When he leaves the army, he moves to London and works as a security guard. And a lot of the dialogue is like this. Yes, okay, I don't know. Sure, okay, yes, I'm not sure. Maybe, let's do that. Maybe, I don't know. And I've read some reviews from people who didn't enjoy this, but I do like a novel that is trying to replicate normal speech. And it felt like this novel was trying to do this. Often the conversations we have in day-to-day aren't particularly profound. They include a lot of yeses and okays and I don't know and maybe and I don't mind. And it felt like this novel replicated really well what a normal conversation is like. It reminded me at times of how Szalay writes, where she really tries to capture normal human interaction. And also the writing style does make the book feel a bit like it's going, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, this also happened. And as I said before, this book in many ways tells the reader what's going on rather than shows them. However, it does a very clever thing, because there is a reason that the book is written like this. Often when a book tells and doesn't show, there's not really a reason for that other than the writing just being poor. But in this book, there is a reason the author has chosen to write like that. And the reason is I think this book is about modern alienation. It's about feeling detached from the world. And so it makes sense that Istvan, his story is told in a detached way, because that's a prominent feeling that he has. And I really like how the mental state of Istvan is replicated through the writing style of the book. Now, some people could see this as a bit of a cheap trick, but I thought it was kind of genius. I really liked it. Also, the novel has a real disconcerting way of telling you awful things that happen in Istvan's life. So it's just talking about like such mundane things, and then it will just matter-of-factly say this awful thing that happened. And I thought that that technique was quite affecting, because that's what life is like. Life is going along normally when something bad happens. And now I want to talk a bit about why Istvan is detached from life and what is causing his modern alienation, which I think also gets to the root of another theme that the book is exploring. And that primary idea of the novel is the idea that are we all just flesh? So for a lot of the novel, I couldn't really determine the significance of the title, because initially I thought Flesh wasn't a great title because it's a bit ambiguous. It makes me think of zombies. And also really at no point the novel really mentions flesh. But then as the novel reaches its end, I did understand the reason that it was called that more. Because in many ways, a person is just flesh. We move around the world as just a bag of bones. Are we more controlled by our physical impulses or our mental thoughts? And if you do detach yourself from life and try to live more passively, I think the idea of being flesh is more significant. And so what caused Istvan to be like this? I do think sometimes we can feel detached from the world just as a result of being alive. Being alive is quite a weird sensation. So I think it's quite normal to sometimes feel a bit alienated from things, or a bit confused about what things mean and what is actually going on, because no one really knows what's going on. But let's not delve too far into that thought. In Istvan's case, I think there are reasons for why he feels detached. I think the first chapter of the book, where Istvan is abused by an older neighbour of his, casts a shadow over the rest of the novel. When I first read that part, I thought the whole novel was really going to be about the abuse he experienced from this neighbour, because I had no idea what the book was about before reading it. Didn't even read the blurb, because I love going into books knowing nothing. And then I was quite surprised to find that in the rest of the book, this beginning chapter is not really mentioned. It's mentioned like once more when he's speaking to a boss of his when he's in London, and he mentions that he was once in prison when he was a teenager. But that's the only real time it's brought up again. And Istvan was 15 when he was abused by his neighbour, and his neighbour treated him like he was flesh, and perhaps this experience then caused him to feel like flesh for the rest of his life. It asked the question, how big an impact does the things we experience as children and teenagers have? Istvan also joins the army, and during his time in the army, he loses a friend of his who he tries to save, but he is unable to. And this, of course, has a great effect on his life as well. But he rarely mentions it as his life continues, and is this also contributing to his feeling of alienation? Near the end of the novel, Istvan finds himself crying randomly. He is moving about the world in a normal way, and then he just bursts out crying. And so there is a feeling that there's a lot of emotions that he's not able to process. And again, I really like how the writing reflects the feelings that Istvan has. His feeling of detachment is so well evoked through the tone of the book. Another feeling I had when reading the novel is that this book is about how life continues no matter what. Near the end of the book, there is a tragedy that happens in Istvan's life, and he mentions how it feels wrong that life is continuing. And the quote is, "There's something terrible about the way normality asserts itself, about the way that summer insists on happening, about the way that chestnuts blossom and Wimbledon takes place." And I think this is not a unique feeling explored in literature. I find that I come across it quite often, because it is a very bizarre feeling when you experience a tragedy, how most of the world is not connected to that tragedy, so it just continues as if nothing happened. But from your perspective, your world is completely shifted and changed, so it feels very odd that that is not a universal experience. And throughout the book, there are lots of moments that feel like they're going to be significant, and then later aren't. For example, at the beginning of the book, Istvan is abused by his older neighbour, and then it's never really mentioned again. When he comes out of the army, he punches a wall and he has to go see a doctor to fix his hand. And there the doctor recognises him and says, "Oh, we went to school together." And I thought that they were going to have like a reconciliation and that would be a significant moment, but it wasn't. It was just mentioned and then life continued. Then Istvan moves to London and he is working as a bouncer at a strip club, and then one night, rather randomly, he helps save this man who has been beaten up, and he calls the ambulance, and then to thank him, the man invites him to dinner at his house, and Istvan goes to the dinner at the house, and then the man offers him a job as a security guard for London's rich. And this completely changes the course of Istvan's life. If he had not happened to meet this man on that dark alleyway in the early mornings that night, his life would have taken a completely different path. And then that man takes Istvan to the shops to buy out some nice clothes. He says how Istvan should dress well so he's perceived like richer than he is. So Istvan buys some nice suits, and it's a real moment of mentorship for Istvan. And I thought that this character would turn up again throughout the novel, but actually he never turns up again. And it felt just very true to life, because I think there are so many moments in life where the moment feels significant at the time, or you meet people and you feel like they're going to have a significant part in your life, and then maybe you then never see them again. There is a moment near the end of the novel as well where Istvan says it's strange for him to think about his wife when they were initially together, because he could never imagine when they were first together that she would have such a large role to play in his life. And ultimately, this story is the story of a man's life. That's in a simple way what it is. And I think telling the story of a man's life in a detached, succinct way through a series of significant and less significant moments just felt so true to what a life is like. So as I said before, this novel is very polarising, and I can completely understand why someone may not gel with what this novel is doing. So will you enjoy this novel? I think you will enjoy this novel if you like reading between the lines, looking at what isn't said, not just what is said. As a reader, if you like to find your own meaning, find your own interpretations, I think you will enjoy this. You'll also like this book if you like stripped back writing that is simple and easy but tackles big universal themes about life and people. And I think you'll also enjoy this novel if you like character-driven stories about relationships, the unpredictability of life and what it means to be alive. I think you'll also enjoy this if you like a bit of an anti-hero for a protagonist, if you like someone who is not completely good, completely bad, but a bit in the middle. Also, if you've ever felt a bit detached or alienated in life, I think you could get a lot out of this book and it might feel quite relatable. And so yes, this book had a deep effect on me, I think largely because of its unique writing style, how it tells the story of a man's life, so it allows you to get really connected to him as a person. And it tackles very universal themes, and I do love a universal theme. So if you've read this book, please let me know what you thought of it. If you haven't yet, I would give it a go, and I'll see you in another video soon. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.